Hey everybody, welcome back to the Soul Podcasting Podcast. I'm your girl, Demetria Zinga, and let me just say Happy New Year. Can you believe it? It's 2025, and we made it. And as of this recording, that is, if you're listening to it later on, Happy New Year, whatever year you're in. Well, I'm feeling all kinds of gratitude and excitement for what this year holds. And if you're new here, welcome to the family. I'm your podcasting coach. I'm also your friendly content strategist. And I want to help you turn your passion into a platform that shines. For my returning listeners, thank you for showing up. You guys are the real deal. And before we jump into today's topic, I've got some updates for you. This year, I am focusing on growing my YouTube channel, which is at Demetria Zinga, where I'm diving deep into this solopreneur lifestyle and content strategy for solopreneurs like yourself. And I'll be sharing tips and motivation and a behind the scenes look at how I do what I do. And I would love for you to join me there. So I'm, of course, leaving a link in the show notes to my YouTube channel. And don't forget, I'm also showing up more on my other podcast, which is the Her Business Elevated podcast. So if this podcast seems a little sparse or a little less frequently updated for your tastes and you'd like to hear more solopreneur advice, I would invite you to go to check out the Her Business Elevated podcast, where I'm all about helping women entrepreneurs turn their profitable passion into a plan of action. So be sure to check that out as well. And again, leaving a link to both of these in the show notes. So I'd love for you to grab your favorite drink, and we're going to dive into today's topic, which is micro niches and how they can help you build a loyal podcast audience that keeps coming back for more information. First off, I'm going to start off by explaining what a micro niche actually is. And we're going to start with the basics. So simply put, a micro niche is a super specific area of focus within a larger niche. So instead of trying to speak to everyone with your business, you're going to zone in on a particular group of people with a shared interest or need. For example, let's say that you're in the health and wellness space. I've just interviewed a couple of people who are in that space. So a broad niche for them might be fitness, right? But a micro niche could be fitness for postpartum moms. I interviewed a lady who was very, very specific about her niche, and that's the kind of business that she started to develop was for postpartum moms and fitness for them. So she has a micro niche. It's not just fitness in general, but for a particular type of audience. And then also weightlifting for women over 50, right? That's super specific because not only is it for a specific gender, but weightlifting for an age group. So do you see the difference? When you hone in like this, you're not just talking to anyone, you're talking directly to someone who's looking for what you have to offer. So here's why that matters in podcasting. People crave content that feels personal and tailored and relevant to them. And so by focusing on a micro niche, you're telling your audience, I see you, I get you, and I'm here to help you. And that connection is what turns casual listeners into loyal fans. So why are micro niches game changing? We're going to talk about why this is the secret sauce for your podcast growth in this next segment. So let's be real, podcasting is a crowded space. We all know that it's super popular now, where it seems to me that everyone and their grandma and their kid and whoever, their cousin, everybody's got a podcast, right? There are over 5 million podcasts out there, so it can feel like you're shouting into the void. But here's the thing, when you niche down, you step out of the noise and you create your own lane. So I'm going to break this down into 3 key benefits for you. And the first is that you have less competition. So the broader your niche, the more competition you face. But when you narrow your focus down, you drastically reduce the number of people that you're competing with. So instead of being 1 in a million, you become the one for your specific audience. For example, when I created my Christian Homeschool Moms podcast, I was honing in on not just homeschooling in general, out of the whole world of education. I took a slice of that and we talked only about home education. But then even from that, we're talking about home education for moms. And then not only that, we're talking about home education for Christian moms. So we're talking about the faith, we're talking about a particular role that they play in the family, and we're talking about also a very specific type of education, which is already a micro niche topic. So when you do that, when you start to narrow down, you become the one go-to source for your audience. Number two, you will create deeper connections. A micro niche allows you to speak directly to your audience's needs, their pain points, and their dreams. So when your listeners feel like you're talking to them personally, they're more likely to stick around and engage and even recommend your podcast to others, which is why I do believe that when I've asked for reviews for my podcast, listeners are usually willing to do that. And I'm so grateful to them for just stepping out of their comfort zone and writing a review for me. But it's because we're able to make that connection. When I come to the microphone, I come knowing that I'm talking to an audience that is listening to me on a regular basis. Typically, they usually are return listeners, and that they love what I'm saying because it resonates with where they are in their space of life. And that makes me happy because I know that I'm helping. I know that I'm making a difference. It's not just me making noise and adding to the noise out here with all the other 5 million podcasts, but it's actually making a difference in my audience. And the last tip that I have for you regarding why micro niches are game changing is that there are monetization opportunities in this. Now, I'm not going to hype you up to believe that overnight you'll be making them, six figures with your podcast, but brands love niche audiences because they are highly targeted and engaged. So those brands who are out there looking to partner with a podcast are looking for podcasts that are super micro niche. And whether it's sponsorships or affiliate marketing, or even just creating your own products, having a clear niche makes it easier to monetize your podcast. So remember, it's not about being everything to everyone, but it's about being everything to the right people. So now we're going to talk a little bit and drill in on how to find your micro niche. So here's kind of a step-by-step that I would recommend you do because it's what I've been doing. And the first is to reflect on your passion and your expertise. And I will place a link in the show notes to a Find Your Passions workbook that I always talk about on my Her Business Elevated podcast. It is free to you, and it's something that I use to help me discover what my passions were. And I think this could be helpful to you. So I will leave the link to that gift in the show notes. And you can think about things like what lights you up and what could you talk about all day without getting bored. So your niche should be something that you're passionate about and knowledgeable in. So if you love baking, maybe your niche is baking for people with food allergies or something like that. And my second tip for you is to understand your audience. You have to think about who you want to serve. What are their struggles? What solutions are they searching for? So the more clear you are about your ideal listener, the easier it is to create content that they will love. You'll also want to think about creating an audience persona. I've been doing this a little bit. And so on my YouTube channel, I have a video where I talked about creating my niche and my audience persona, or what I call my customer avatar. You can check that YouTube video out as well. I'll leave a link to that. So you'll want to give this audience persona a name. You're going to list their interests. You're going to define their pain points. And anytime you're creating a podcast episode, you're thinking about that one person that you're reaching. And it will feel like you're talking to one specific person. Thirdly, do your research. Use tools like Google Trends, social media, or even podcast platforms to see what's trending in your space. You want to look for gaps. What's missing that you can provide? For instance, maybe there are tons of podcasts on personal finance, but none that focus on personal finance for single parents. You see the difference? There's more of a specific focus that puts a nice slant to what you want to bring to the audience. And that would be your opportunity. So let's bring this whole thing to life with a couple of real life examples. So for example, a parenting podcast that focuses on homeschooling neurodivergent kids. You see how very focused that is? Or maybe if you're doing a travel podcast, let's say you're a Black woman that wants to show your experiences traveling internationally. So then you could say solo Black women exploring international destinations. is your micro niche. Or if you're doing a business podcast, it could be centered around social media strategies for handmade artisans, right? This is very, very specific. So you're not speaking to everyone. You're speaking deeply, though, to a particular group of people. And that is the power of the micro niche. And loyal listeners is what you're going to probably create through those micro niches. And they are worth their weight in gold. And lastly, I want to encourage you to take that leap into your micro niche. And I know that niching down can feel very risky because you might feel like you're limiting your audience. But again, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. So trust me, it's the opposite of what you're feeling. By narrowing your focus, you're amplifying your impact. Start small. Test the waters by creating just a few episodes tailored to your micro niche, and then update your podcast description to reflect your new focus. And pay attention to how your audience responds to what you're doing. Remember, your micro niche isn't set in stone. It can evolve as you grow, but the key is to start somewhere. And if you need help figuring it out, I'm here for you. Just reach out to me. I'm also figuring out my own micro niches as I continue this podcast over the next year. I'm figuring out my strategy, how I want to fit this content, especially since I'm already doing so much with my Her Business Elevated podcast and my content strategy over there. I'm trying to figure out if this is something that I want to keep doing with the soul podcasting. I love talking about podcasting, but should I integrate that with my other podcasts? I'm not certain at this point. So I'm figuring that out as well and trying to see what you guys as my listeners would like to hear from me, how you would like to go about consuming this content. So I'm even in the same bandwagon as you all and everyone else. And we're all here to kind of help each other figure out this podcasting game. So I think I love sharing on this podcast because it is very specific to those who are interested in creating and growing a podcast. It's very, very niche. And so that is why I've stuck with this show. I'm currently running 3 shows. So that is a little bit of a lot, but I enjoy podcasting so much that I'm willing to do it because it's been a game changer in my life. And I love sharing information this way. But again, you guys, not only do I love podcasting, but I love YouTube. So if you want to hop on over there and follow me there, I would love it if you would follow and subscribe to my channel, which is Demetria Zinga Solopreneur Lifestyle. And that's it for today's episode of the Soul Podcasting Podcast. I hope you're feeling inspired to explore your micro niche and take your podcast to the next level this year. Just remember, 2025 is our year. Let's make it happen. Be sure to follow, subscribe to this show, and leave a review because it helps me to keep bringing you the tips and the encouragement that you need. And until next time, I invite you to stay soulful and keep shining. And most importantly, keep sharing your voice. I'll catch you in the next episode. Happy podcasting.